You can support this podcast and get shows early and ad-free, as well as bonus episodes over at patreon.com/flashback64. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Flashback 64, the chronological Nintendo 64 podcast. I'm Gooey, joined as always by McKenna.
Hello.
And today it's one of our big tentpole N64 games, one that's kind of loomed large in the discussion. We're talking about Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah.
And for you, it's a first time experience.
As usual.
Yeah, that's true. But it's rare, in a lot of games we've covered, especially lately, it's for a lot of people have never even heard of some of these games. So this one, there was a lot of expectations maybe, or we'll get into it. Mm-hmm. We'll get into it because there's different takes, but we couldn't ask for a better guest for this episode. Returning to the show from DK Vine, we've got Hyle. Hey, Hyle, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's a totally different world since the last time we had you on. There is a new Donkey Kong game that exists since we've had you on. What's the tenor right now? What's the mood over at DK Vine and the Donkey Kong world?
We're all basically tired and burned out from the last year, but
yeah.
Overall, we're all ecstatic with the game. It turned out to be exactly what we wanted, and then also giving us stuff we didn't know we wanted, but makes this a little bit awkward because I would say that Bonanza has probably eclipsed Banjo-Kazooie now in my favorite games, and it was always the case where I could say, yes, we're Donkey Kong's site, but our favorite 3D platformer is Banjo-Kazooie. And now Donkey Kong's kind of got a good 3D platformer at long last. And so, but I love Banjo-Kazooie, obviously, and I could talk about it, and I have talked about it almost 3 decades now. So I'm excited to be here.
Before we get into talking about the game, like usual, let's do our flashback segment where we let people know what was going on at the time of the game's release. Banjo-Kazooie was released in North America June 29th, 1998, which was, I'm kind of outing myself here, that was my 8th birthday. So, happy birthday to me. Everyone has to be nice to me when they're hearing my takes on the game, I guess. It's 5 days after our last game we covered, which was Mortal Kombat 4. We're in the 5th week of The Boy Is Mine by Brandy and Monica at number 1 on the charts. When the Lights Go Out by 5 makes a big jump in the charts. So I started reading the actual Billboard magazine charts. And this song, When the Lights Go Out, makes a big jump from 44 to 29, which apparently they have a designation that I did not notice before called the Greatest Gainer. This is not that interesting otherwise. We watched the music. Remember that music video? It's the British boy band, and they're in a bowling alley. Uh-huh. I was clearly they just were let's we can get this bowling alley rented out for a couple hours. Mm-hmm. Very budget. Hyle, does this song even ring a bell to you? Do you remember When the Lights Go Out?
No. So the last time you had me on, I think it was Tub Thumping. Chumbawamba, and I think Candle in the Wind.
It was the Candle in the Wind
Princess
era,
Diana version. So I was yes, I can talk about those. I know those. And these, I think probably because I wasn't in school, it was summer vacation. And so I didn't have that kind of cultural osmosis with music I wouldn't have ordinarily listened to.
You're hearing the marimba stylings of Grant Kirkhope, maybe.
Yes.
Okay, well, we've talked about this a lot, but movie soundtracks are also big at the time, and the City of Angels soundtrack has returned to number 1. Kind of keeps getting there. Also, there is a Hot Shot debut, another magazine designation I've learned about. It goes to the soundtrack to Have Plenty, which is at number 39. And also the Dr. Dolittle album is at number 49. And in fact, Dr. Dolittle is the number one movie the week this was released.
As a boy,
Why do dogs sniff each other?
That's just kind of our way of shaking hands.
John Dolittle was in touch with nature.
Nice to meet you.
30 years later, nature's getting in touch with him.
I'ma smack that mustache off your face.
Eddie Murphy,
Hello.
stop talking to me! Dr. Dolittle,
Do a little dance, make a little love, get down tonight.
rated PG-13.
Oh, wow.
Hyle, you gotta have a memory of Dr. Dolittle, though, right?
I remember not seeing it. It's wild to me because this might be one of the few instances where the N64 game you're discussing has maintained a bit more cultural relevancy than any of the stuff topping the charts during this week.
When we recently I would just say I rewatched Dr. Dolittle. You watched it for the first time, and I was like, it was like 8 years old when it came out. It was the perfect age to watch this movie. Like there were so many things that were just like it would happen in the movie, and just like snapshot in my brain went off. Like, oh, I remembered thinking like this singing guinea pig voiced by Chris Rock was like the funniest thing for 3 months of my life. But yeah, was it a culture shock for you, McKenna? Maybe.
Well, I watched the original Dr. Dolittle as a kid.
Yes.
So it's like a totally different thing because it's like this is like secondhand embarrassment, the movie, whereas the original is more of a celebration of him talking to the animals.
Yeah.
Not something he's trying to hide.
It's very much, we noticed it's kind of like Flubber, Hook, I guess, has this too, where it was like, what was our idea to rebrand this movie in the 90s? And they're like, well, we'll take the concept, put a comedian in it, and it's like a movie about like a absent father figure. And that's the 90s stew they were cooking up. Just other little news stories. So this week, or in fact this day, President Bill Clinton visited China. It was the first time an American president visited China in the 1990s. There was a lot of discourse at the time, let's say. Windows 98 was also released to the public, which, let's talk about video games. Video games that you could play on your PC that came out around this time since our last game. Mech Commander, Max 2, Mechanized Assault and Exploration. And over on the PS1, you had Adidas Power Soccer and Akuji the Heartless. Are you a fan of any of these? Maybe Adidas Power Soccer, was that a big game for you?
So I was not a PC kid except for Oregon Trail and maybe I graduated to SimCity eventually around this time, but the PlayStation, so I was in a bubble with the PlayStation. For me, none of my friends had a PlayStation. I think if we had maybe been a couple years older, we would have been in that world. But to me, I thought the PlayStation was one of these weird, expensive, ephemeral consoles that you kind of saw in department stores sometimes, but nobody you knew had it, so it basically didn't exist. And I was shocked to learn that the PlayStation was more popular than the N64, probably around this time, maybe a little bit later, 98 or 99. But yeah, none of my friends had it, so it basically didn't exist. It wasn't until the PS2 that it really cracked my circles.
Well, speaking of Nintendo 64, want to jump into our game, McKenna?
Banjo-Kazooie is a collectathon platformer in which the titular pair must work together to save Banjo's sister, Tootie, from the evil witch Gruntilda. Using Banjo and Kazooie's abilities, the player will travel through 9 different worlds, collecting music notes and jigsaw puzzle pieces called Jiggies. There are a variety of ways to collect Jiggies, including completing platforming challenges, winning races, solving puzzles, defeating enemies and collecting small creatures called Jinjos, 5 of which Gruntilda has imprisoned in each world. Some challenges will require you to transform into a different creature like a termite or bumblebee by visiting the shaman Mumbo and exchanging tokens you've collected. Use all your abilities to collect the Jiggies and progress through Gruntilda's lair to stop Grunty and save Tooty in Banjo-Kazooie.
Nice. So yeah, Banjo-Kazooie, obviously, I mean, most people know, developed by Rare, published by Nintendo. Hyle, maybe you could shed some light on this. I had read that this basically started development as like a completely different game on the Super Nintendo.
Yes.
Project Dream. It was called like Dream something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even Dream was 2 separate games. So
I see.
The original Dream, Project Dream is used for both of them, but the one on the Super Nintendo was Dream Land of Giants. And this is what the Donkey Kong Country team went on to do after Donkey Kong Country 2. Donkey Kong Country 3 was handed off to kind of a new team, kind of like the understudies who had worked on the first 2 games, but then they took the lead. And so like Greg Mayles, Chris Sutherland, Steve Mayles on art, and then eventually, other people joined the team. But they started this fantasy game on the Super Nintendo called Dreamland of Giants, and it was rendered in the same ACM style as the Donkey Kong Country games. It was kind of a 2D side scroller with some like perspective shifts. But I mean, they started development in like early 96, and so there was no way it was really going to come together before the N64 came out later that year. And so I think pretty quickly the project shifted to the N64, and then it took on a whole different tone. It was a pirate game, and you played as the protagonist was the same, Edson, this young boy who like had a sword, and in the Super Nintendo version, at least, he had a dog following him. But this then became a struggle against the evil Captain Black Eye and his crew. And it was 3D, but top down. But they just struggled to find a direction for it. And it was kind of clear sometime in 97 that it wasn't really working. And by that time, of course, the N64 was out and they were all playing Super Mario 64. And the great thing about Rare during this time is this kind of back and forth dialogue they had with Nintendo creatively, where Nintendo would do something and then Rare would look at it and then basically yes and it like it was improv, and they just took it, maybe refined it a little bit, added their own ideas and polish and presentation, and then they would put that out, which would in turn inspire Nintendo, Miyamoto, Nintendo EAD to then do something better. And you really had this kind of in-house rivalry almost, but it really, I think, brought out the best in both parties. And I think nowhere is that more clear than Banjo-Kazooie, which is just, hey, what if we tighten up Super Mario 64 and add a whole bunch of irreverent humor and like just gorgeous environments.
It was really funny watching some of the footage that's on like the Rare replay of it, like where they're talking about the transformation of it, and like they sort of reason out like all the little changes they made to get to, it being this Super Nintendo game where you're playing as this boy to this pirate game to a game about a bear, and then the bear's got a backpack with a bird in it, and it was really funny to like and cool to like hear, just how every like little like thing they had to think about like slowly morphed the game into something completely different. And like I feel like that's a strength of theirs too, that they were like seemed to be like really flexible and like willing to make the game like match, what it needs to like be a fun game as well.
Well, yeah, and also like I kind of buried it when talking about Banjo, but there was an earlier version of Banjo-Kazooie as well, which was more of kind of top-down perspective game, and eventually they threw in a towel and just did Mario 64, which was the right call. But yeah, like 4 different iterations in about 2.5 years, and I mean, good on them for not getting bogged down in any one and trying to make it work. I mean, that's what you would see today, that sunk cost fallacy of just throwing, money and time and workforce in it and getting nowhere. So they eventually found the right formula.
And it's kind of cool because it doesn't come off when you're playing it like we've played a handful of games, so kind of in our chronology where it's like there's times where you're like, you can tell like, oh, they just like ran out of runway on this game and they just had to like wrap it up or something. And certainly there are like things in this game that they intended, there's definitely things where I'm sure, especially if you talk to them, where they didn't get to bring everything to fruition, but like this game doesn't feel like it. I don't know. Like I would say the presentation of it feels like a polished game compared to what else we've played.
Yeah, definitely. It doesn't feel like it was unfinished or unpolished or anything. It feels like, just from what we've seen from them, like maybe, like you said, there was stuff maybe that they wanted to put in, but it doesn't feel like they put in stuff that they weren't able to finish and just like left it in. Like what's there feels completed.
I feel like it's along the lines of like, yeah, like all the other Rare games have kind of had like along with like most of I think pretty much every Nintendo first party Nintendo game we've played has had like, oh, this feels like there's like a level of polish to this. The Nintendo polish, yeah. That there's been other great games, obviously, but yeah, they have a pretty strong batting average, I would say.
Yeah.
So, well, Hyle, you were talking about how, like, yeah, they are in conversation with Nintendo, and obviously, like, Diddy Kong Racing would be one of those games, and that's the last game we had you on for.
Right.
And you talked about, the fact that, like, Banjo was there being teased almost in that game. So, you as a fan, like at the time, like what do you remember about like when Banjo-Kazooie came out? Like were you pretty pumped, or what was your situation?
So when Banjo-Kazooie was announced, which was E3 1997, alongside Conker's Quest, as it was known at the time, and I remember, as a young fan who really has no insight into any of this stuff, I remember getting that magazine, getting that Nintendo Power, like, oh, the E3 issue, because already at that point, E3 had been built up in your mind as this is when they're going to announce the big games that are going to come out this holiday season. And, we had gotten annual Donkey Kong releases up until that point. And so I just assumed that the N64 Donkey Kong game would be announced at E3 97. And here comes Rare with these 2 new animal mascots. No Donkey Kong whatsoever, except for like Donkey Kong Land 3 on the Game Boy. But I remember being upset, outraged as a fan. Like, how dare they? How dare they forget about Donkey Kong? And what made that all go away is when they announced Diddy Kong Racing a couple months later. And it turns out Banjo and Conker are both debuting in Diddy Kong Racing through the context of being friends of Diddy and Donkey Kong. It's like, okay, well, I'm okay with these guys now.
They laundered the characters through Diddy.
Yep. Yeah, just they smuggled the goodwill in. And so by that point, I was like excited about Banjo-Kazooie. And, we only had half a year to wait at that point after Diddy Kong Racing. So I was really, really looking forward to it. And then they sent out a VHS tape. It was through Nintendo Power, but also if Toys R Us had your information, if you ever reserved a game through Toys R Us, they sent you a VHS tape of basically 12-minute Banjo-Kazooie sizzle reel narrated by SNL alum John Lovitz.
It's Banjo-Kazooie! The coolest headbanging, beak-busting, sky-flying, rock-hopping, egg-shooting, tag-teaming duo in a new game with so many thrills, chills, spells, and splats, you won't be able to put it down!
Oh, perfect. Wow. Okay. We have to see this one. We did review the Diddy Kong Racing one, which was a sight to behold, but I didn't realize they got John Lovitz in on the Banjo-Kazooie one.
We have it on our YouTube channel if you want to check it out.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's probably my favorite of all of them just because of the surreal nature of hearing John Lovitz talk about Jinjos. And it's like an out-of-body experience. You're not really sure if it's actually happening. And I remember watching it with my friend, and I knew who John Lovitz was because I was a nerd, even at that age.
Yeah,
I was just like, yeah. So I was trying to explain to my friend who John Lovitz was, and it like explained all these old SNL characters he did in the like 80s, which I wasn't even around for.
Hey, but the critic would have been on at the time.
Yeah, the critic was, I think, already come and gone at that point.
Yeah, you might be right.
Yeah, but it was like a validating thing just to hear John Lovitz talk about like mumbo jumbo and run through all the worlds with you. So like I had it reserved at Toys R Us. They got me. It worked on me, and I also got a plush mumbo jumbo for reserving it there. So sadly I don't know where it is. It's lost to time somewhere.
It's probably
but
worth something, you know.
yeah.
It's a treasure. Yeah. You said it's like one of your favorite games now. Like, was that?
Oh yeah.
You're immediately taken with it. Okay.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it also was the first time one of these big games had come out during summer vacation for me. Like when I say big games, I mean just games I was so hyped for, so invested in. Usually they would come out Black Friday, November. I would usually get the Donkey Kong games for my birthday, which is, funnily enough, November 22nd, which is when Donkey Kong 64 came out. So,
wow, okay, nice.
A year later. So, but yeah, like my summer just revolved around Banjo-Kazooie at that point, and it was, for many reasons, which I'm sure we'll get into, it was a game that I kept returning to, even like well after I'd beaten it, before Banjo-Tooie had come out. There were plenty of reasons to keep yourself invested in that game world.
Yeah, I played both the Banjo like games back in the day, and then I think it was like maybe in my like early 20s, maybe where it started to become novel, like seeing an N64 around, you know, because it started to become sort of retro. I think I had one for a time, and I remember replaying it, and then it's just been a long time, and I've always, you know, remembered it fondly, even though it wasn't like a game like Zelda or Mario that I've or even GoldenEye, where I've like replayed it like in greater intervals, I guess you could say. But yeah, I always remembered it pretty fondly, and then I don't know, when we started doing the show and like talking to different people, I like it all of a sudden, like I realized there were a lot of people who like really didn't like this game. Like I don't know if it might, I don't know the ratio, but I was like, it was interesting to discover that. I was just thought of it as a cool game. So I was like looking forward to getting to this episode again, because anytime we have, you know, some friends who would be like, oh yeah, that game it really upsets me, and I was like, I can only remember like in playing it once or twice and really enjoying it. So yeah, I was looking forward to just seeing the game again, like with fresh eyes as a middle-aged person. McKenna, it was new to you. So what did you think of the game?
It was inspired by, you know, Mario 64, so it definitely feels you know, I can see a lot of the DNA in there, but it's also like it doesn't feel just like a direct rip off of it. It definitely feels like Rare's take on it. I thought I enjoyed it a lot. I think it has a lot of the same issues that I have with other 3D platformers of the time.
Camera control, is that the number one thing?
That's a big one. Yeah, and just like that, just traversing through certain, air, water, certain platforms.
Oh, like the depth perception or whatever.
That and just it's the way it controls. I think even that even like I think air and water went beyond this era a bit. I think some games still have trouble with it.
I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on that because like it's similar to I think some of those other games I mentioned where like even though I played this game a few times, like the controls feel pretty natural, like intuitive to me, and it might just be more like I'm like been more like that's been more my genre. Like it was definitely hard. Like we were playing it on stream with like and taking turns, and so that was kind of hard to like just jump into it every once in a while, as opposed to when I was sitting in our living room playing it by myself. Because playing it that way, I found it very like chill, but when we were like put into those like on our streams, when we were put into like these very high stress situations, it was very much like harder. And I was like, is there something like wrong here? Like what's going on? But I think when you compare it to a lot of the games we're covering like at that time and like how they handle 3D, like obviously they take away some control from you. That's what you really like. But I feel like what they do provide is a hell of a lot more, as you said, like polished and manageable than like 90% of the other 3D games we play.
Yeah, I guess I always like put this up against maybe the first 3D platformer I played which was Jak and Daxter.
Okay.
Which I think controls extremely well. Like it's still very easy to control today.
I see. Yeah.
I feel like in that short span of time, things really advanced in how we control in 3D environments. So just like the jump from, Mario 64 to Jak and Daxter is pretty big, and we're still not there yet.
I do feel like in a lot of levels, though, Hyle, I don't know how you'd feel about this, but I feel like in a lot of the levels, there are some like really difficult like platforming challenges and stuff. But I noticed this more playing it on my own. That I feel like the experience of it is more just kind of like moving around the world and like checking it out, and then they'll sprinkle in like here's like a puzzle or maybe like a tough platforming challenge. But I don't think navigating the worlds overall is as like platform intensive as Mario 64.
Yeah, and I think it's because, and I think this is just a different design philosophy from Rare and how they would kind of build up their worlds, but it was more of a natural environment, so you really would have less occasion for just weird floating platforms and less like obstacle course environments. Like you have a big tree. You have a big tree and you have to scale the big tree, and there's going to be lots of things on the branches, and so it's more of that. And like I will agree, going back to it today, it's kind of janky just in comparison to modern games, but going from Super Mario 64, this felt so much more polished in 98, and I still find it actually really good to play if I have an N64 controller. Like even playing it on NSO, if I have that N64 controller hooked up, I'm usually okay. But if you give me the Joy-Con 2 or whatever, I'm going to be struggling a little bit.
That's been pretty universal, I feel like, with pretty much every N64 game we've played on NSO. And this is like one of major thing I always bring up, but like I'll talk to people about a specific old game and they're like, this game is way worse than I remember. Like I couldn't control it. And I'm usually like, are you playing on the Joy-Cons? I feel like, I don't know what you can even do about that. Like, I always say Nintendo should just ship everyone an N64 controller so they can experience it the right way. But maybe that's what they're doing with the new Star Fox game. Like I saw they were encouraging people to use the N64 controller. So, maybe if we get it into enough people's hands, they can understand that, no, these games control a little bit better than you remember.
There's just something about the precision of the stick in comparison to the modern ones that it's like crunchier, or I don't know what it is, but it definitely makes a difference.
That might be too, like we were playing on our stream, we were playing with the N64 controller on NSO, and I don't know if there's any actual difference at all, or it might just be, like I said, being tossed, it being my turn and other people watching. But when I was sitting down playing on our proper N64 on our old TV, and we were just hanging out this past week, it was like, this all feels right. It feels pretty natural. Like if it felt like riding a bicycle, basically. Like, even though it was a game that I hadn't played all too much in my life, like playing it didn't feel much different than playing Ocarina of Time or something, which is a game I play like twice a year, basically. So yeah, I don't know. Actually, I guess comparing it to Mario 64, for me personally, I actually think I still prefer Mario 64. Like, I like the more, I like the like more abstract, like platforming based levels, and like the controls and stuff still feel intuitive to me, or maybe it's just the familiarity. But I still really enjoyed Banjo-Kazooie, but I do like, Mario 64's like overall platform design, as opposed to the I guess the sort of collectathon nature you mentioned. I feel like that's like a big talking point of a lot of like people who maybe don't like this less, is like they don't like the sort of collectathon nature of, especially as they go to Donkey Kong 64, which is maybe a different topic. But I don't know, how has that always struck you, Hyle, as someone who like really likes the game? Like, do you like the collecting? I take it, right?
Yeah, well, one thing about the collecting in Banjo-Kazooie is I don't feel like it's overdone. I don't feel like it's excessive. It usually gets like raked over the coals for Donkey Kong 64 sins, but
yeah.
Really, like, I feel like Banjo-Kazooie is pretty restrained as far as like what it makes you collect.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a completionist, you still got to get everything. But one thing I really like about Banjo-Kazooie compared to Super Mario 64 is you're not knocked out of the world every time you get a Jiggy. You just keep going. You have your little celebration dance, and then you keep moving. And so it really felt like I was invested more in that world, trying to find everything, interacting with all the weirdos who populate these environments, like Boggy the deadbeat dad, and just like it's for me, like, that's always been the appeal of Rare's games, and why I became such a big fan of Rare is just the weird worlds and just how realized they were. And so I never minded collecting, because it just meant I had to like explore every nook and cranny of the worlds and get to know them like the back of my hand.
I definitely like, yeah, I like that you kind of just keep exploring in the world. Though, yeah, just for me, like, I don't even think of like it being a case where it's like Mario does it right and this does it wrong. But I do think I prefer the bespoke, like, here's the challenge of this level, and if you want, you can go for another star, but like we have like a bespoke platforming challenge for you here, as opposed to it's just a different take, though. Like, a Jiggy and Banjo might just be like, oh, you had to find the basement of the haunted house and break open a barrel, and there it is. And it's not like anything crazy. It rewards you more for just poking around the world, and that appeals to me more as like a Zelda fan, because there's a lot of stuff in this that I think people might feel like is more tedious, where it's like, okay, you have to open the thing and then go do the Mumbo transformation and go back as the creature and get the thing, and there's a bit of like backtracking and like doing things in the right order that I think some people might find more like tedious or whatever. But for me, it's almost like a somewhat Zelda-y, where it's like solving like a, doing the right order in like the water temple or something. Like, oh, you got to go here, make the water level here, and then do this. So I like that sort of level design. What'd you think about it, McKenna?
Yeah, I think I like that there's kind of a balance that there's some jiggies that are pretty easy to collect. Like you just gotta do one thing, but then there's others that are these multi-step processes. It's even just like in complexity, that the variety there I enjoy. And you might find other things on your way to collect the jiggy, like the music notes that maybe you wouldn't have seen otherwise, that you would have unfortunately missed.
Right.
Yeah, I like I like all the different ways that you get jiggy. Some I like more than others, probably just like more the puzzly over the more difficult platforming. Some there were definitely some that we found super difficult. Although you said maybe that was more a stress of streaming.
Yeah, or Hyle, I'm not sure what this is, because we streamed it with our friends taking turns, and there was things that drove me nuts. And then I didn't complete my run through, but I got up to like the last level or two, and close to the end of the game, where I like to actually get to the end, I probably only needed like 10 to 12 more jiggies between the two levels. But yeah, up until that point, I know it's like the last two levels where the difficulty kind of like is the most difficult. But like up till that point, I was like, oh, none of this was hard to do. Like I never died. It was really chill. But I don't know if that's because I just beat the game with my friends like a month earlier or what. But I don't know. I actually don't think the game is, like, talking to one of our other friends, she was like, this game like tortured me. And I was playing it again. I was like, I don't know. I don't think it was that difficult, but I don't even know anymore. What do you think?
There are a few jiggies that still can give you time today. It's hard for me to be objective because I do know the game so well. And
yeah, I know that feeling. Yeah.
But then again, I completely understand the streaming thing, where I streamed the game a few years back and had a miserable time.
Yeah.
And I think it's just the pressure of people watching you. It like the way I play games isn't really conducive to entertainment. To like
same.
Oh yeah, watch me play this game really well. No, I'm going to spend 20 hours looking at this texture on the wall. So I think I crack under the pressure, and I just start forgetting basic stuff, and then I start focusing on the fact that I'm doing poorly, which makes me play even more poorly. So it's definitely a game that I recommend playing in a shut closet with the lights out.
Well, I do want to clarify that it being like that, it was actually a lot of fun, because we were playing like with our friend and my brother, and yeah, just like watching the other person mess up is pretty funny actually. So yeah, it was good.
Did you try any of the moving puzzles?
Oh, that was another thing. I had meltdowns on stream trying to do the puzzle.
Yeah.
Are those maddening or what?
So I tried to do that on stream, and it about broke whatever remains of my sanity. I ended up using save states. I just cheesed it because I just wanted to be done with it. And yeah, those are some of the most challenging, I would say, sins ever committed to a video game.
There's one where it's like completely one color, and you're trying to solve like a jigsaw puzzle where it's like
Yeah.
Just like the background texture.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is so mean.
They bring those back for Banjo-Tooie and actually make them a core component of the game, but they make them far simpler and they like tighten up how you can move them and what you're required to do. So
to be fair, these are not required. You just can make Banjo into like a horrible monster.
A washing machine,
codes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. When you yep, exactly.
When you get them all. And I would say getting to play as washing machine Banjo is required for everyone, at least once in their life.
It was a good reward, I will say. Yeah, there was a couple spots like that where it drove us mad, but it was in a fun way. A big one was, if we're just thinking of like the most crazed moments, was in the boat level towards the end. There's that like one room with all like gears spinning or whatever. It's like the industrial part.
Propellers then, and trying to get back up through the propeller.
We just started calling it the room. And what we ended up doing was we created like a save state right there. And then we just like kept switching like to each person, like and then when they died, it's like, okay, now you try. And it eventually is like, okay, it's not that bad, but it's one of those, that's like one of the levels where it's like, I wouldn't even consider collecting any of the music notes until you've like completed that section, because it's such a nightmare.
Yeah, I think that's everybody's like least favorite jiggy in the game.
Yeah.
Although like there's other people who like will just keep falling off the tree and click clock wood and just swear off that world entirely. And there's people who hate Clanker's Cavern for when you have to swim down in the deep recess. And
that was one everyone's like, oh, Clanker's Cavern, and we played it, and like it was like scary moments, I feel like. But then again, I was just playing it by myself, and I was like, oh, this is not really that difficult of a level at all. It's like the third level. Yeah.
I think it's more childhood memories and how scary that felt when you're a kid, and that just stays with you and magnifies and mutates into something nightmarish in your brain, and then you go back to it and you're like, oh, wait, never mind.
Hello, we are Kirby Conversations, a podcast on Kirby along with adjacent subjects like Smash Brothers, HAL Laboratory, and other related Nintendo games.
In each episode, we take an in-depth look at a new Kirby topic, drawing on our decades of experience with the series. I'm Sean Douglas. I'm a writer and podcaster with a background in video game and theater journalism.
And I'm Gigi, the editor-in-chief of Kirby and a big Kirby fan from Brazil. I translate Kirby interviews from Japanese to English and research a bunch of obscure Kirby media.
And I'm Bridget, a longtime fan, commentator, fan artist, and Kirby collector.
Join us for a mix of commentary and original reporting, deep dives into Kirby history, interviews with industry professionals, and more, as together we explore all things Kirby and HAL Laboratory. We're a proud part of the Soundstone Podcast Network, and you can find Kirby Conversations on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
I feel like there's a couple things about it, the difficulty, that do make me feel like it's okay. It's maybe like they've lessened some of the like crazy platforming to get around to Mario 64, but then in a lot of ways, like I feel like they have made it more challenging. One is, the collectibles to get to the end. Like Mario has a ton that you don't need as much to beat the game, whereas like Banjo-Kazooie, you have to get all the jiggies and all the notes, but you have to get like a high percent of them. So I feel like it does kind of force you to like really explore. Obviously we talked about like the music notes, and when you die in a level, you have to like collect them all again. And then you mentioned the swimming. I feel like the health management in this is a little bit more tricky compared to Mario 64. Like in Mario 64, you can pick up a coin and heal yourself, or just jump in the water and you'll be healed. Whereas Banjo-Kazooie, you do actually have to be a little bit more careful with your health. Like, you can drown, obviously. And then when you're killing an enemy and they leave behind like a honeycomb to heal yourself, like there's a strategy in like trying to avoid picking it up if you have full health. And I feel like in Mario 64, like you can be a little bit more liberal, I guess you could say, with your health. Obviously there's plenty of times where it challenges that, but Banjo-Kazooie, I feel like you have to pay more attention to your health.
Yeah, so that's why I prefer this game, the gritty realism.
Yeah. After I've taken down these woodland animals, I leave their honeycombs out on the field. I do like they stay there though. That's nice.
Yes.
But yeah, even like the note collect, that's another thing that I feel like a lot of people, when I talk to them what they think about the game, like the music note collection is pretty rough. That's another case where I kind of do prefer like maybe getting the coins in Mario, where it's more of just like, hey, if you want to go sicko mode, you can. Whereas this game, it does like it kind of forces you to engage with like exploring like almost all of the levels, which I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But I feel like I heard they changed that in later
quite
Banjo
controversially
games.
Because you can't please anybody.
They
changed it on the Xbox 360 version. And that way you just collected the notes and then they just stay collected. But the problem with that then is a lot of the notes are designed as kind of markers to like show you different routes, different ways to go. So once you collect those, you don't have that anymore. So I don't know what they're going to do. It's coming out on the Evercade. It's going to be a new version of Banjo-Kazooie alongside Tooie. And I don't know what they're going to do as far as music notes go. So,
do you have a preference?
I prefer the music notes having to be like collected in one go because I'm a sicko. So, but that's also just what I was introduced to as a kid. So I think that'll always be my preference. Like, no, that's right. That's the way it's supposed to be.
I do think on the flip side, and again, this was on my replay. Like I said, I got to where I got to, and I got all the notes, and I never was in a situation like I had all the extra honeycombs sitting around in case my health got low. Like it was pretty rare I was actually in a situation where I felt like we had that moment on stream where it's like, oh shit, we're going to die and then we're going to lose. We got 73 notes. It's like such a high amount to have wasted time on. And I'd never had that. And then I got to like the last two levels, and between those, you don't really need like many more to get to the end. So, I don't know. I feel like your feeling about it might be more neutral just because of the way we played it. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, I feel like there's a compromise here where they stay collected, but they're still visible. Like if you die, like kind of a shadow. I think I've definitely seen that in games where
or like how the stars are in Mario 64, right? Where they're like a different shade or whatever.
Yeah. I feel like we might have complained about losing them all, but we got them all back fairly quickly.
Yeah. None of the levels are like really huge or anything. So
yeah. Once you know where all of them are, I guess the only maybe kind of annoying ones are like you went in a specific hidden area and you're collecting them all again and you forget about this specific little area.
Mm-hmm. Or I had like some little areas you go in, even when I didn't have to redo it. There's some like, I think there's one like pyramid in the desert level where, if the camera doesn't shift, like I walked around the little room and I think the camera didn't shift to where like I didn't see an alcove. So I got to the end of the level and I was like, I'm missing 4 notes because there's like 2 in 2 alcoves. And I'm like, I know if I Google this, there will be someone complaining about this online. And yeah, that's where they were. So it can be a little frustrating. But again, I feel like it's maybe not as bad as you would think. But again, now I'm becoming someone like where it's like, oh, I've played it multiple times, so I just know where they all are, and it's not a problem. But I can understand like first time player, especially if you're young. Like you were talking about people like remembering all these things. Like it's kind of a different thing, but it reminds me when I talk to people and they're like, oh yeah, I got stuck in the water temple as a kid. You can soft lock yourself in that thing, and it's like no. It's not designed that way. You just missed the little thing in the middle there, and like that's imprinted on you. So that could be just a scarred childhood memory, maybe.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that, especially this era of the Nintendo 64 and the ideas we kind of concoct and the rumors that start spreading, and it definitely makes it seem more nightmarish but magical at the same time. So
yeah,
I do kind of look back with fondness at this game, and I wish I could see it with those eyes again, because I can just see it now. I can see all the textures, I can see the skybox. It doesn't but when I was a kid, it felt like a real place I was visiting, and so
I get really, what you mean,
yeah, it felt a lot more intimidating back then.
Yeah, it's that thing of like going back to your old school or whatever, and it's smaller. Like that's what I noticed about the desert level, Gobi Valley is
Gobi's Valley.
Gobi's Valley. Yeah, that's one where it's like I remember it like the sprawling desert, but it's like just this one roundabout with like a couple pyramids. It's kind of.
This is why you need to watch the John Lovitz tape, because he will shout every world and it will drill it into your brain. You actually can't hear these worlds without hearing him shout like "Mad Monster Mansion." I'll just hear that. I'll just wake up in a cold sweat at night.
Okay, well, we're mentioning the levels. You mentioned earlier, Hyle, like it has more of a they're meant to feel a bit more natural than like a Mario 64 level. What I don't know, what did you think about the overall world and like I don't know the vibe of this game, McKenna?
I like a lot of the worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Gruntilda's lair is a little bit challenging to get through.
Like
it's just like figuring out, just to start, figuring out where everything is. I was getting lost a lot in there, but I like a lot of the worlds and their theming. I think they're very memorable. Especially a couple that stick out to me were Mad Monster Mansion and Click Clock Wood. A spooky world is just kind of McKenna bait.
Yeah, for sure.
But I also just really like how the whole design of that world. It's got the whole, all the spooky things, graveyard, grave area, cathedral church.
It's got the really good music in that church is really cool. It's like the organ part and the little puzzle that goes with it.
Yeah. I think that was maybe my favorite Jiggy.
Yeah.
You put like a music themed puzzle and that's also McKenna bait.
Sure.
This one I think had my favorite transformation too, the little pumpkin.
Oh, so cute.
So cute.
Yeah. I love that guy, yeah.
And there's the stained glass Banjo-Kazooie windows at the church, which you can go through.
This level had everything for you, actually.
Yeah. And that didn't give any jiggies, but it just gave you like some stuff, like you could heal up, I think.
Yeah, like eggs and all that good stuff. Yeah.
It was just like a nice little secret room.
Mm-hmm. Which, this game has plenty of those things, which I feel like is cool because, anything could be in there. You could find a jiggy in the basement, or, you might find a honeycomb to upgrade your health or whatever. Or, it could just be you find some stock, which you might need. There was definitely times where I appreciated that. And you can flush yourself down the toilet.
You
can flush yourself.
Yeah. That
really appeals to you.
Hey, that toilet has a name. His name is Lago, and he will be respected.
I'm so sorry.
Everything has a name.
Everything has a name in this. That was some of the humor in the game. I'm like, okay, this is a bit much, but I guess that's the whole point of it is like we're gonna do this all to excess. But that was one thing I really loved was it was like everything, down to every item you could possibly pick up, everything talks to you. It has a name, it has eyes. I found that really charming. Yeah.
I mean, the name is usually just Blanco and they have googly eyes, but I mean, it's so self-aware as far as that goes. And I think by the time like it wasn't this team, but Conker's Bad Fur Day really just took that to excess and kind of capped off this whole era. But
no kidding.
No, I love the attention to detail in this game. You're talking about Mad Monster Mansion, and like you'll see this portrait of a pirate on some of the walls, and that's actually Captain Black Eye, the original antagonist of Dream. And then he actually turns up in the sequel as a real character, and then he like is still like he's in the Sea of Thieves lore. He like shows up in the periphery of that game. So like just stuff that is still paying off today. And I really want to talk about Stop and Swap if you get to it, because
maybe we should, because that is something that is, we were talking about the idea of like them putting things, this is more because of later factors, but they put this thing in the game, the Stop and Swap feature, which I think they intended to use with other games to have the games sort of transfer to each other, which speaks to, I guess you're talking about like their attention to detail. Like it does really feel like they are focused on like not maybe brands, not the right word, but like they really like kind of had a good way of like presenting that, like Rare, the studio, and like interconnecting these games. You know, we talked about with Diddy Kong Racing. So I thought that was like a really cool feature. But maybe if you want to elaborate more on the Stop and Swap and tell people what it is.
So I beat this game, I think, mid to late July, right? But then you get to the ending. If you get 100%, then Mumbo Jumbo pops down from the palm tree on the beach and says, "Hey, I've got some secret Polaroids for you." And it's for the next game, Banjo-Tooie. And then he shows you these moving Polaroids of Banjo and Kazooie accessing these areas in the game that you could not access, like Shark Food Island and Treasure Trove Cove. You can go in, it rises up, and you can go in there, and there's a mysterious pink egg in there. And then in Gobi's Valley, there's a door that opens in the cliffside, and there's a sarcophagi in there, and that's got a blue egg in it. And of course, the spinning ice key in Wazza the Walrus's cave in Freezy Peak. And Mumbo's like, "Yeah, this will be for Banjo-Tooie. I'm not going to tell you how to get it now." And you're like, "Well, what do you mean it's for Banjo-Tooie if these areas are in Banjo-Kazooie? What is this?" And the rest of the summer, we were like, me, my friends, we were chasing all of this stuff like we were conspiracy theorists. And it was the first time I felt like the world of a video game didn't just end when we beat it and it was over. It was just like, there's more. There's like this ellipses at the end of this sentence. Like, somehow this is going to come back in the sequel, and somehow the sequel is going to connect to it, even though this is just this physical cartridge. And then, you know, is it a lock-on cartridge? How are they going to do this? And of course, it didn't pan out, and maybe that's really a story for another day. But the intention was, you're going to be able to take this ice key and take it into Donkey Kong 64. And then Donkey Kong would use it for something in Crystal Caves. And then he would keep it cold in a freezer in his treehouse until Banjo needed it back in Banjo-Tooie. And then Banjo would take it from Donkey Kong. And then maybe Conker would use it, or maybe Joanna Dark would use it. So, like, it was just this wild idea that Paul Makachek and some others concocted at Rare. And it's a shame it didn't work out, because it basically, it kept this game in my N64 console, like, for probably the next year, just obsessively trying to, like, beak bomb every suspicious texture, trying to do, you know, how kids would do back in the N64 days. You know, they hear some rumor about how to get the Triforce in Ocarina of Time. And so you have to like run counterclockwise for 8 hours and hit all of these different tablets in a very precise order. And, but we're willing to try anything because, I mean, and this was the game actually telling us there's more. We're just not going to tell you how to do it. So it felt like there was some validity to this. And it was so tantalizing that, I mean, I since then have done probably half a dozen podcast episodes about this topic alone. I've talked to the architect behind it all, and just like finally Greg Mails just posted on social media at the end of last year, hey, here's the master plan for what we're going to do. And like up to and including Donkey Kong being a playable character in Banjo-Tooie. So,
oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
So they had like a roadmap almost of all what they were going to do with it.
A loose roadmap that quickly went to hell when Nintendo realized what they were up to about a year later when they noticed something suspicious in Donkey Kong 64 and asked them about it. And they're like, oh yeah, we have this method we devised called cold swapping. And they're nope.
Yeah, for people who don't know, basically it's like if you're able to like swap your N64 cartridges quickly, like some of the memory or something, right? It's still like,
I think you have like a 10 or 15 second window after you turn off the console that it retains the memory. And so if you quickly put in another cartridge, you can then carry over data from that cartridge into the new one and activate, say, an ice wall or raise a shark food island in Treasure Trove Cove.
I think it's really cool. Like, didn't it come out? Nintendo was like, oh, this might not work on like later consoles, right?
There's that concern, and there's just the concern that because it's never been something they've advertised people to do, like just
it's weird,
very minimal risk you could damage a cartridge. They didn't want that liability.
That's fair. Yeah, I understand that. Though I think it's cool. Like I mean, people still do cool stuff like this, but I feel like this was an interesting era of like nothing quite like this, but having different things communicate with your game, whether it's just like, linking something from the GameCube to the Game Boy Advance or whatever, or how, you'd have the games like Monster Rancher or whatever that like read your CDs, like doing interesting stuff that
I love stuff like this.
So cool. Yeah.
It's like just having cloud-based data doesn't feel the same when your plastic cartridges could talk to each other.
Yeah, now it's a little like, it's maybe not as exciting when it's like, oh, it's kind of neat, oh, I got a skin because I played this game or something. But and I'm sure there's examples out there of people doing interesting stuff with like games interacting with things nowadays, but I just can't think of any off the top of my head. I definitely don't want to be like back then, with the stop and swap, we really were cooking, and it's all been downhill since. But yeah, it's a cool idea. And the one thing it kind of reminds me of, though not quite, is the only thing from the time that kind of like would have blown my mind in a similar way was how again, I'm bringing up Zelda all the time, but how Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons had like the password system, and like you could affect the storyline of one game a bit, or like have an extra ending, and like playing the one affects the other. I thought that was a really sweet concept. I guess speaking of, I did want to throw out, you mentioned earlier Click Clock Wood. Like obviously that also made me think of Oracle of Seasons a bit, but that again gave me a very like Zelda vibe, where like that level really was, it even made me think of certain Zelda dungeons where it's like you have to leave the dungeon to like open up a new part of it. And yeah, it does seem like that's more of a polarizing level. You mentioned Hyle earlier, but I think it's it might be the best level in the game.
My favorite.
Your favorite?
I absolutely adore Click Clock Wood. I just love the way the four seasons are depicted, and you see the change, and you even get like the little sad moment where you have to say goodbye to your eagle baby, and you just, it's like, oh, it's the first time I experienced like empty nest syndrome, and I'm a kid,
It was cool to have like a the other levels sometimes have something like that where you kind of affect something else there, but this was cool to have like there was almost like a storyline to the level.
Mhm.
So yeah, it sounded like that was like the hardest level for them to do because of that. It seems like it was a very complicated process, but yeah, that was totally my sort of, yeah, just definitely scratched that Zelda itch for me a bit.
Yeah, see, I think seasons are still an underused mechanic in video game. Like, I think Life Sims use it a lot, but outside of that, it was Oracle of Seasons.
Yeah, seasons based like puzzles are like super neat, I think.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing you mentioned the overworld, but that also did kind of scratch that like sort of Zelda-y itch of like having something in the level affect something in the overworld, and like going out and like having to find a jiggy or like a secret code or something like that. Like the way the overworld sort of like interconnects, and like having to find the puzzle to open a level in one part of the overworld, and then like finding how you get to the actual level from there. Like there was kind of a cool interconnectivity. I feel like the issue you were having with like navigation, we were all having that, but again, I think that more came from you're playing for a while, then you pass the controller to me, and I'm like trying to reorient myself, because I found when I was like replaying it on my own, like you end up walking around the area so much that you start to build a map in your head. But maybe it's a little less intuitive than like Peach's Castle, because that's like you sort of get it, like, oh, I'm in the castle, I'm on the first floor. Whereas like the Grunty's lair, it's like you go through a door and all of a sudden you're in like a volcano or like a cemetery, and it does kind of just like shift dramatically, as opposed to like feeling like, oh, I'm in this one sort of building or whatever.
I did like exploring it. I remember,
yeah.
Like at one point, I had, after one of the early worlds, like one or two, where I was in the lair and looking around for the next world, and I think everyone else, at least the other two, knew where we had to go next or had some idea. But I didn't, and we had enough jiggies that we had access to a lot of the lair. So I was just like walking around finding like, world the fourth, and I'd be like, is this where I'm supposed to go to next? And I've gone like so far from, where we, could go there because it's open, but
yeah, depending on your notes, it does kind of encourage, like you can do things like in a funky order if you want, which I do appreciate, like that sort of freedom. That was not too dissimilar to like Mario, but I feel like it's more rewarding in this because like because of the fact that you have to like find the thing that unlocks the level and then find the level, and there might be puzzles mixed in there where you got to like find the thing that brings up the pipe, or it feels like a bit more involved, like exploring that overworld. Hyle, that's probably something more second nature to you, but what do you think about like the overworld of Grunty's lair?
I love Grunty's lair. I don't know if this is a good time to just mention the music really quick. This is one of Grant Kirkhope's most famous soundtracks, and like what I didn't realize was like the theme to Grunty's lair was like a repurposing of the old song Teddy Bear's Picnic.
If you go down in the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise. If you go down in the woods today, you better go in disguise.
Never heard this song as a kid. It wasn't part of my youth, but it was pointed out like years later to me. So I, by this point, can just go to YouTube and pull it up. I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. But it's just... For me, like, just the amount of, like, color in this game, even the darkest, like, dingiest parts of Grunty's lair are just bursting with color. The amount that they were able to just jam in all the textures in this game. It's never dull. It's never like muddy or washed out like some N64 games can be. Like everything's vibrant, everything pops. And so I didn't mind getting lost sometimes and trying to explore. And yeah, it's second nature to me now. So I don't even like remember what it was like to not know my way around Grunny's Lair. The only part that I still sometimes trip up is around Rusty Bucket Bay to Click Clock Wood. Like which tunnel am I supposed to go down to get to?
We had that.
Yeah. But other than that, yeah, I love just hanging out and looking for Gruntilda's live-in sister who hates her, apparently.
Brent, yeah, she's kind of rude. I kind of felt bad for her by the end of this. I don't know if that's something we want to talk about, but like, I feel like that's some of the humor that like, there's some humor there that I'm like, I get it's supposed to be like a bit sarcastic or whatever, but I was like, oh, some of the things that were meant to be like, oh, she's bad. I'm like, that sounds cool. Like she sounds cool. Gruntilda does. Can you remember there was a couple details that her sister shares about her that felt very like, what's your problem?
Yeah, I remember more of the like just the like appearance related comments, but
it was very much took me back to 1998 in a bad way, where it's like, yeah, she's fat, she smells bad, you know, like it's like, okay, yeah, great.
It's the one thing that I think a lot of people are reevaluating is, wait, Brentilda's not great either. Like the fact that like, and I think the sequel Banjo-Tooie does like really show you why Gruntilda is not a sympathetic figure, what she gets up to in that game. But just going off of this game and just going off the presentation, you're starting to wonder, was Gruntilda just bullied into this like this bout of like self-esteem crisis where she feels like she has to suck the youth and so-called beauty out of this bear cub. But yeah, it some of the stuff doesn't age well, but it's amazing because I was going through some of my old things the other week from my parents' house. Like after they moved, I like had boxes and boxes of stuff, and I found my Brentilda clues from 1998. I'd written them all down as I talked to her, so I would be ready when the game quizzed me on this. And I found my original sheet from 98 with all my with all my clues from my original save file, which is still on my cartridge. So I was quite pleased to make that discovery, even if it's just like talking crap about her boyfriend. Like,
yeah, I should have pulled up the one where I was like, this isn't even an insult. I wish I could remember. I was like, this just sounds like a normal, cool thing to be into. But
I think now that we're in 2026 and, you know, of course, like body positivity is more of a thing and we're not just shaming people for not being so conventional. I think some of those, like, you're like, wait, what? Who is the true villain here?
We need Wicked sort of reinterpretation.
Yeah, it beat Wicked on all of that stuff. But then again, Banjo-Tooie makes it hard for me to sympathize with Gruntilda. So,
okay. Well, I can't wait to get to that one. Yeah, there's a few things like we talked about when we talked about we did an episode on the Diddy Kong Racing DS remake and how they gave is it Taj? They're like, all right, let's change the voice. Like there's a few characters in this. Like I wonder if they like did another Banjo, like is Mumbo Jumbo gonna be a featured character anymore? You know, like that's one, like, will this guy survive? Or like like lesser characters like the Snake Charmer guy, where I'm like, oh, this is very I
will say that like everybody who is responsible is aware, and thankfully, like most of the people who did develop that and who were at Rare or still at Rare today and kind of shepherding the legacy of it, they have grown with the times as well, and they're like, yeah, we wouldn't do that today. We would change that character. We would do that entirely different. So like, yeah, there is some stuff in especially Banjo-Tooie that makes me uncomfortable.
Oh, geez. We have more to look forward to. Great.
But yeah, like even by 2008, like they were going back and saying, or 2007, excuse me, they're going back and saying, yeah, we can't do Taj like we did, which
They were
is
ahead
more
of like The Simpsons on
The
that
Simpsons,
one.
yeah. So,
So-
I mean, I'm not trying to like make excuses, but at least they know as well.
I mean, that's been like a kind of important aspect of this show. It's like we go back and talk about these things where about the 90s, and it's like, yeah, it wasn't all just like fuzzy good memories, you know. Look at the, well, actually it's a good number one hit song, but a lot of times it's like, yeah, people are like into crap, or if we'll watch a random like late night monologue from the time or something, and it's like, oh
yeah,
jeez. So very much I don't want to cover too much for the game, but definite product of its time, especially when they're going for like that. They're like really going for the like sarcastic, like trying to like wink at maybe more mature gamers and stuff, and slip jokes in, and it's like, oh yeah.
Which did work on me at the time, where I would have been self-conscious maybe about playing a game that was so like heavily cartoony, kind of a fractured fairy tale. Like every time Kazooie referenced inserting something into somebody's butt, I was like, oh, see, it's for adults. So I'm actually really grown up playing this.
That was probably like, I feel like it wasn't for me until like the next quote unquote generation, where I really felt like I'm not playing like games for kids now. I want to play games for grown-ups. And that's where like, but that translated more into like games that were like scary or more like violent or whatever. But this game and Tooie playing like when, you know, especially a couple years after it released, where and around when Tooie released, where I was like 10, like that was like the preteen version. Like this game was that for me, but instead of it being like heavier violent, it is just like, oh, because they're saying they want to like you said, stick something up your butt. Like to me as like a 10-year-old, I'm like, this is the most cutting edge like humor I've ever heard.
Yeah, there's a clear trajectory from this to Tooie to Conker's Bad Fur Day. So
yeah, where they like just goes
going
off
up this little ladder there.
Yeah, you mentioned like the world and like the fractured fairy tale. It does feel like it's doing the we talked about this with Diddy Kong Racing. Like they are going for a bit of like a Disneyland, like a theme park vibe. It feels like with the different worlds, but them doing like their sort of like ironic twist on it. And yeah, like I just the music. I do want to mention that one more time, just because I feel like not only is that the overworld music cool, but like I feel like this overall soundtrack is pretty cool. This is our first like full-blown Grant Kirkhope soundtrack from Rare. Like he's worked on previous games we've talked about, right? But I feel like this one where he did like the majority of the music.
He did GoldenEye. He did GoldenEye before this.
I think that was,
although you know some of that's repurposing the music from the movie, but yeah, like this is definitely, I think, really Grant Kirkhope's coming out party as like, hey, here's a talent to watch. Definitely this is where like he started getting a lot more gigs than David Wise, or just the games David Wise was assigned to just weren't coming out. So it was just like Grant Kirkhope, and his signature style, I think, really manifested in Banjo-Kazooie. What most people think of when they think of his music, it's this. You mentioned the marimba. I'll throw out the xylophone as well, and
any of those.
Just other like whimsical instrumentation.
If he can get any of those xylophone like instruments in a song, he will.
yeah.
Almost like, again, that's something that I feel like goes in excess sometimes, but I don't know, the world themes are interesting, like how they have sort of like different versions of them and everything. Like it feels like, I don't know how many games if we've played many games that really...
It reminds me of Mario 64, where a lot of the world themes, level themes are like variations of like the title theme.
Diddy Kong Racing had that a bit in like the overworld and like when you're selecting the characters, but this feels like even more like kicked up a notch.
Even just like the dynamic shifting of the music, like it gets quieter if the higher up you get on like Treasure Trove Cove until it's just completely ambient noise. And that was, I mean, it was pretty cutting edge for the N64. I can't remember any other games that really did all of that at once with its like sound design. So
yeah, I think in our journey so far, like I feel like it's probably the most impressive in that sort of category. Actually, in a lot of categories, but yeah. Okay, well, let's see. I feel like we've sort of hit on a lot of the things vaguely. I guess one thing I just want to mention one more thing with like the overall presentation. Like I think it's got the game has a nice like wrapper to the game. Like we talked about how the overworld works, but I think like it's got a cool like opening to it, opening cutscene, cool title screen, like when you're selecting or when you're file selecting and you're like in the house and moving, and how you kind of go from the house to like the hub world into Grunty's lair. And then of course the bookend of like the ending of the game, I think is also really cool. I mean, that was a very memorable part for us. I vaguely remembered this, but this was all fresh to you. Like, what did you think when we got to like the ending part of the game, McKenna?
The ending is wild.
Yeah.
Our friends kept telling us that we would need to remember Gruntilda facts,
which we did, and just up in the. I don't think we might have got it wrong a few times actually, but
yeah, we had to start over a couple times.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, I had no idea it was coming, and then we walk into this board game, this death board game, and basically had to, you have to answer a bunch of trivia and
do some mini games.
Some of it, some of the trivia is very specific, like how many underwater rings did you have to go through? I think that was the most memorable to me because we were like arguing about it and I had like 1 second left to pick and I just picked something and I was right.
That was iconic.
Yeah, that was a fun, difficult but fun challenge, I think. And then you get through it and you get the credits.
Yeah, it's like the little fake out ending,
I was like,
right?
Wait, what? Huh?
Yeah, like, we have to go back and finish the game.
We have to go back in.
That's something that like really appealed to me back at that time. I feel like there was a lot of that in that era, like movies and stuff I liked where like I felt smart because like I was like, I get it. It's meta, or whatever. But yeah, then like, the actual like final boss fight was also a huge, well, I don't want to say a huge ordeal, but it was actually quite an epic finale. Hyle, what do you think of like the ending part of this game?
I love being rewarded for paying attention to stupid, minute trivia and details that ordinarily wouldn't matter. So I loved it. I mean, I loved the whole Grunny's Furnace fun. Not the whole Grunny's Furnace fun, because sometimes there was a lot of really cheap questions and like objectives and replay this really annoying bit of the game. And but overall, I enjoyed it. And and then you have to, I guess Tootie, Banjo's little sister, eggs them all and said, "Hey, you didn't murder Gruntilda. Get back up there." Slit her throat. And so they like have to interrupt the barbecue and they run away. And then you're like right back where you left off. But then you get to explore the transformation room. That was the site of all the game over sequences. And you
another great detail to this, actually. Something I loved in Donkey Kong 64 as well, that like when you even when you just save and quit, they like give you this very involved like cutscene that it's just like nothing, no other game that we've played is like that. Like it's like usually you quit the game and that's it, or you game over and it says game over. But like nothing where it's like, now watch this wild scene play out before you. So love that extra detail.
Yeah. So it was fun to actually get to explore that at your own leisure, and then, go up to the rooftop finally and fight Gruntilda, which was probably the most challenging boss fight of my entire video game playing career up until that point. I remember that was one of the like purely white knuckle moments when I was a kid, just my hand gripping the controller all sweaty, and it's a bit easier nowadays, but it still gives me trouble every so often.
Yeah, we were like taking turns trying it between the four of us playing, and it took us a couple tries, and we found some of us were better. Like, that was what was cool about it, was like the phases are like quite different. And so we did find that some of us were better at some parts than the other. And I think we took turns on some of the phases at that point. But I like that. I like that it was like 4 phases to her or something like that. It was very involved, but it was, I think in terms of, just in the game alone, like there's not a bunch of like most of the boss encounters they don't feel like capital B bosses. So in the game, it's crazy. And then in a lot of the games we've covered on the show, like I don't even think there's a finale quite like this, I would say, with that sort of epic presentation.
This is probably the most difficult boss, I'd say.
Yeah.
At least 3D.
Yeah, much more involved. Like I love the Bowser fight in Mario 64, but there's like one evolving phase to it basically. So it was cool to like have to actually do like go from like the different types of gameplay, like whether you're flying or fighting, down below, or at the end where you're like having to shoot eggs into the statue. Like it was, which we got by the skin of our teeth. That was stressful. But it was really cool. It made it all worth it. It was fun to have kind of an audience for that too. It was a lot of fun. So I feel like, obviously we could spend all day talking about like every sort of aspect of this game. I'm trying to think if there's anything more specifically we want to hit on before we wrap it up. I guess the only thing we've mentioned it briefly in different contexts, but I do want to talk about is I think the different transformations you get are pretty cool. I think mainly for me, they change up the gameplay a little bit. But for me, mainly it's just sort of the novelty of seeing Banjo be turned into like a different creature was really appealing. I think a lot of them have like really, you mentioned the pumpkin, but like the alligator I think is adorable. I think that's obviously the washing machine is peak, of course, as well. I don't know. It was something that reminded me a bit of Zelda, where it's like, oh yeah, and I've like have this thing that kind of like changes how I navigate the world, and it's pretty cool. I don't know, Hyle, are there any like transformations other than the washing machine that are your favorite?
I like the bee, just because I like love the freedom of flight that it grants you, even more so than you have with Kazooie. But I'm kind of partial to all of them except the pumpkin, just because the last time I played Mad Monster Mansion, I had a terrible time because I had we discussed, the streaming yips or whatever. So I think that's kind of turned me against the pumpkin for a bit of time. But other than that, though, I love all the transformations, even more so in this game than Tooie, I would say. I think all of these are pretty winning and memorable.
For sure. Yeah, the pumpkin really, for me, like I said, like there's nothing about it like gameplay wise. It's just then you kind of find the little spots where he can fit in. It's not one where I'm like, oh, this is spectacularly fun to play as. It's just the pumpkin is the most adorable to me. So I like that one. Hyle, how about you? Any final I know you've obviously over the conversation, DK Vine, there's like, hours and hours of you talking about this game. So I'm sure you've said somewhere everything that you'd want to say, but is there anything else that comes to mind that you'd like to get out there about Banjo-Kazooie?
All right, how about I'll just throw out a fun piece of trivia.
I love that, yeah.
Okay, so the fight with Conga the gorilla in Mumbo's Mountain, where he's throwing the oranges at you, he makes this guttural noise when he does that. And if it sounds familiar to Nintendo fans, N64 owners, that's because it's the same Hollywood sound clip that Nintendo used for Donkey Kong in Mario Kart 64 and then later appearances by him. And it's actually a pitched down chimpanzee noise from, it might be the 30s or 40s. But if you listen closely, it's used in several Hollywood productions. And actually, I heard it in the Jordan Peele movie Nope. There's a chimpanzee in that. And they actually use that same sound clip that's used for Donkey Kong and Conga the gorilla in Banjo-Kazooie.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, beyond the music, there's great like sound effect stuff going on in this game. Like the voices are one that's like, that's like one of the most like, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's like one of the things that defines the like style of this game the most, is like that specific speech pattern that the characters have of just like the two different like noises they make that it kind of fluctuates between. I feel like that's some of the most like iconic like game speak there is, even though it is just like
but it's such a clever workaround, and I know some people find it obnoxious today, but it was just one of those things where you get used to it and you start to just like, you don't even hear it anymore. That just, they're talking, and this is what
I agree. No, I like it. I like. How do you feel about it, McKenna? As someone, you didn't. I mean, I guess you've encountered banjo in the wild, just culturally and Smash and stuff. But did that seem weird to you, the way they talk?
No. No, it felt normal to me.
I do start to like hear, because it is enough of a voice that you do as you're like reading it in your head. You do kind of imagine the character saying it. I think it's really clever.
Oh, I think it helped too that we had heard Banjo's voice. We heard him speaking full sentences in Diddy Kong Racing. Well, full sentences. He says, "I'm Banjo," and
that's a sentence.
But from there you can extrapolate what he sounds like when he's saying all of this, and you just hear the and then the other characters just kind of naturally come to you as well. So you don't need much.
Yeah, I would like to think my bottles that I did like a voice. We all did like voices. I think my bottles was pretty accurate too.
Yeah, that's what he sounds like to me now.
Some of the like, how all the items talk too. Like sometimes they would have like, you're like, there's almost a fun factor of like, okay, what's this going to sound like when we talk to it? And they would have like a really insane sound effect.
You don't understand. It's after us. It's big. It's got huge teeth, a big beak, bulgy eyes, feathers, fur everywhere.
Yeah, and pigs can fly.
No, bears can fly. Bad guys beware. Here comes Banjo-Kazooie, where you're both bird and bear with amazing powers. There's never been anything like this head-banging, sky-flying, rock-hopping, egg-shooting, tag-teaming duo. Banjo-Kazooie, only for Nintendo.
Hyle, thank you so much for coming back on the show and shedding some light on this game for us.
Thank you for having me. I'm always up for talking about Banjo, or really to an unhealthy degree. I should probably stop at some point.
No, you're doing great work out there. We've kind of mentioned all your stuff already, but feel free to plug everything you got.
Okay. Well, if you are a fan of Rare, Banjo-Kazooie, Donkey Kong, Conker, sometimes Star Fox, weirdly enough, then visit dkvine.com and also subscribe to the Conversation podcast. That's the Conversation Donkey Kong Universe discussion. There's actually another conversation out there that is not related to us, but they don't talk about Donkey Kong. But we do a weekly podcast that's about the world of Donkey Kong and the extended Donkey Kong universe, of which, of course, Banjo-Kazooie is a part. So, we are just now getting back to some classic games after spending most of last year talking about Donkey Kong Bonanza. So, we've got, let's see, what's coming up this year. We've got 20th anniversary Viva Pinata, which has some connections to Banjo-Kazooie. Did you know his goldfish? Okay, here's my last trivia fact. His goldfish, who you actually see Mumbo grilling during the barbecue at the end of this game, he survives that encounter, and he goes on to appear in numerous rare games after this as kind of an Easter egg.
Oh.
And he's actually, in Viva Pinata, he's disguised himself as a Pinata goldfish, which do not exist in the game. And it was later confirmed on Rare's website that it was actually Royston in hiding to get away from Banjo and Kazooie.
There's a lot of like characters I feel like you've dropped lore for in the last episode do have like a troubled history, whether it's evading the law or being grilled alive. Like, what's going on?
Yeah. This is like, it's a running gag of it's basically, I mean, this was of the era South Park, right? It's their Kenny who constantly gets murdered and yet somehow keeps coming back for the next story.
That's amazing. Okay, well, yeah, I'm looking forward to like covering more Banjo-Kazooie and more Rare as we move through the N64 library. I didn't really mention it, but obviously this game was such a big, it was a big hit. So we got a sequel that we'll get to, and of course Donkey Kong 64, and maybe we can have you back on for some of those. Would be a lot of fun. I also should mention our next episode, the next game we're covering. We talked about Rare, along with Nintendo kind of being like the big, they're kind of the backbone of the N64 library so far. And then another company has been sort of the most prolific, though mixed in quality, and that's Midway. And our next game is Off-Road Challenge, which is... it's something, I'll just say. And it does feature things that you would not put in a video game in 2026. So that'll be interesting. But I look forward to that episode. Otherwise, you can check out all our stuff at flashback64.com. Check out other shows on our network at soundstone.network. Thanks to our Triforce tier patron, Lee, for the support. And everyone else. McKenna, great job today.
Great job, Goop.
Gah. We'll talk to everybody later. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. I'm Nick McConnell, and you caught me reading the instruction booklet for Street Fighter II in preparation for my weekly stream Instruction Derby, where I take a look at the creative, fun, and sometimes bizarre lost art of video game manuals. Did you know that, according to the manual for Street Fighter II on the Super Nintendo, Ryu was born in 1964, making him 62 years young, canonically? Happy birthday, Ryu. You're looking great. Did you also know that, per the manual for Laser Invasion on the Nintendo, the UN enters a conclave in order to select a new commando? Or did you know that the dancing enemies in Super Castlevania are named Paula Abgul and Fred Askare? These important facts and many more are discovered every Wednesday at noon Pacific on Instruction Derby over at internet website twitch.tv/Nick McConnell. Part of the Soundstone Network.
Hey everyone, my name's Darren Hupke. I'm a writer, publisher, and podcaster. My podcast is called Pixels and Polygons. Each week I sit down with a guest and ask one simple video game question. It's a random topic each week and it leads to a fun conversation. You can find it on your favorite podcast platform every Friday, and you can read more about it at pixelsandpolygons.net.